All right, so we talked a little bit about statements. Now I want to talk about conditions. A condition, so remember, the condition had to evaluate to either true or false, and we use the condition to decide if we're going to execute these statements. So a condition has to be Boolean, right? It could be any kind of Boolean value, a Boolean parameter, Boolean expression, or a Boolean method, and we'll talk about those here. So a Boolean value is just a value of true or false, right? So you could actually have write methods like this, where you'd just say if true, move 4. This would be horribly boring, or so I call this one go and this one do not go, because this is always going to be executed, because this condition is always going to be true, right? True is always true. So we're going to always move 4 here. With this one, the condition is always going to be false, so we're always going to skip this block. So this is never going to do anything. So I'm just putting these in here to illustrate that true or false can are what eventually gets passed to the if statement, but you would never really write methods like this. So this is just to show the condition, the actual value that you end up with for the condition is going to be either true or false. We could also have a Boolean parameter. So we've seen parameters before of different kinds. So we could have a parameter with a Boolean data type and use that for our condition. So here we have a method that says move forward or back, and we pass in a Boolean value of is scared. So let's say we wanted it so that if the turtle is scared, he backs up. So we can have that as our condition. We can say if is scared, because this is going to evaluate either true or false, if is scared, move backwards 4. Okay, and then else, this else bit is something that you can tack on to your if statement, or you can call it an if-else statement actually, if you want to have an alternative for if your condition's not true. So if the condition's true, we'll do everything from here to here, right? And then else, if it's not true, we'll do this bit. So we're going to move backwards 4 if we're scared, and move forwards 4 if we're not scared. And notice for my statement, I used a method call statement. So I have the name of my method, open parentheses, the argument that it needs to be passed, closing parentheses, and a semicolon. We can also have a Boolean expression as our condition. So a Boolean expression is some expression that evaluates to true or false. So let's see an example of that. So let's say we're passed a parameter called steps, but we don't want our turtle to go too far in one step. We don't want him to go more than 10 pixels in one step. So we check the value of steps first, and we say, well, if steps is less than 10, then I'll move that many steps. Okay, and see, I can pass the variable steps as a parameter to move because it's an integer, and move needs an integer. Okay, so here's my condition. So my condition in this case is an expression. So what less than does is it takes two numbers. So here's an integer, steps is an integer, and 10 is an integer. It compares those two integers, and if this statement is true, if steps is less than 10, then it spits out a Boolean true, and my condition becomes true. If this is not true, then it spits out a false, and my Boolean condition is false. So if steps is less than 10, this will evaluate to true, and I'll execute what's in this block. I'll move steps. If steps is not less than 10, then it'll completely skip this block. It won't do it. let's see, we saw a little bit more complicated expression in Trick the Turtle, where we generated this random number between 0 and 99, and we used the less than to compare that to 10. So that came out less than 10. But again, this is the same idea. We're comparing this number with that number using less than, and that will give us that'll spit out either a true or a false. So then this condition is going to be either true or false. If it's true, then we do our turn. Okay, so it's the same idea. You can also have a Boolean method, I'm calling it, which is basically just a Boolean, a method with a Boolean return type. Okay, so you could, for example, at world edge returns a Boolean, right? So that means we can use this method as our condition, because this method is going to spit out either a true or a false. So we can have an if statement like this, where we say if at world edge, and we just stick the method name in there. But we have to remember, whenever we make a method call, we put parentheses, even if there are no arguments. So this method doesn't have any arguments, but we still need to put the parentheses. We just don't put anything in them. So that's the basics of what your conditions are. So you basically can be a Boolean value, Boolean parameter, Boolean expression, or a Boolean method. And we'll see there are lots of examples of different kinds of Boolean expressions that you can create, and we'll see other ways of doing that later on in the course.